Okay. I don't know how this is gonna go. Hello to my professor, Dr. Cochran. I apologize for this. I have 7 essays due just this week, and I thought it would be a lot easier to do a YouTube video instead of write a 5-page or 5-paragraph essay. So, today we will be talking about the history of traditional piracy. Okay, so as you might know, stealing has existed since, the fall of man. As soon as we sinned, we wanted to steal stuff. However, stealing things on water has existed since the 1300s BC in the ancient Mediterranean. Do you guys like my map? I drew this on myself in 15 minutes. One of the oldest documentations of piracy is an inscription on a clay tablet describing pirates that date back to the Pharaoh Ecton. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Please don't ask. And that is in 1350 BC. The report mentions notorious freelance Mediterranean shipping attacks in North Africa. Greek merchants who were trading with ports in ancient Greek city-states of Phoenicia and Anatolia occasionally allude to piracy as well in their records, which was a classic, byproduct of trading activity within those city-states, I guess. It wasn't a full country yet. Okay, moving on from ancient piracy, let's move on to what we would consider traditional piracy, or the golden age of piracy. The height of Western piracy, which was also known as the golden age of piracy, was formerly known to exist from 1650 to about 1730. Now, a lot of historians argue about this, but that's the term that I'm using. Okay, so a lot of where this was happening, let me get my pen out first, was when buccaneers, that's what some pirates were called in Europe, targeted the Spanish Main. This is my only pen. 1 minute. Targeted the Spanish Main here. Well, I would probably say more coastlines or whatever. When they targeted the Spanish Main over here around the coast in the 17th century, around 1650 to 1680. A lot of men, and honestly there were some women pirates, but mostly men decided to become pirates because they couldn't find meaningful employment following the end of the wars between England. I didn't draw England on this map. Oh my gosh. Literally ignore that. Okay, so pirates often became pirates because after they were done in the Navy, they didn't have anywhere else to go. So you had pirates around, this area, infiltrating ships that are coming out of both their own countries as well as Spain. Pirate crews, as you might have seen on television or in popular movies, mainly consist of white crews, of all white people and not many women. However, this is not always the case. Pirate crews could in fact include anyone from just about anywhere, as long as they're, within this area at this point in time. They could include African slaves. They could include indigenous peoples that moved from places like South America, for instance, or even Africa, for example, who aren't slaves. But pirate crews could potentially be very diverse. We just might not have a lot of documentation about that. All right, let's get into some famous names you guys might know. So we have famous captains, and unfortunately I cannot go into a lot of detail about this. This is supposed to be only 10 minutes, although I may or may not exceed that. Editing me is gonna kill present me later. Some famous captains you might recognize are Bartholomew Roberts, aka Black Bart Roberts, Blackbeard or Edward Teach, Charles Vane, Edward Lowe, Captain Stede Bonnet, the gentleman pirate, Captain John Rickham, aka Calico Jack, Captain Benjamin Hornigold, or Captain Samuel Bellamy. Okay, so how did these pirate crews do what they did? Pirate ships typically targeted merchant ships that were by themselves with no protection. Usually while they were navigating a narrow strait or were near the shallows, so that the pirate ship could kind of spring on them and appear as if they had come out of nowhere. A pirate vessel may also get close to a ship by flying a flag that was either their flag or a nation that was allied to them, so that they wouldn't be suspected at first. One of the first weapons that a pirate would use would be the Jolly Roger. As you might recognize, it is the skull with crossbones, so even if a Navy captain did not even know what the skull and crossbones meant on a flag, just the picture of that is kind of terrifying. To see this giant ship come towards you with a skull and crossbones on the flag, that's terrifying. Okay, so most private vessels that pirates were targeting were poorly guarded, so it was really easy to just hop onto the ship, take the loot, and go if they needed to. However, if the ship did not give up the fight as easily as, I, as a captain, might, the pirates had a lot of weapons to choose from. They carried cannons of various sizes. The pirates themselves could carry grenades, muskets, pistols, cutlasses, axes, and clubs for a lot of, closer hand-to-hand combat. Firing cannons was not as common when it came to pirates attacking other ships because they did not want to damage the goods on the ship or damage the ship itself, because both might be useful to them. So whenever a cannon was shot by a pirate ship, it was often a warning shot or, something used as a scare tactic and not really an actual use of a weapon. Okay, so what were these guys looking for? These guys were looking for gold. A lot of times that is the stereotype for pirates, that they are looking for gold coins. This was not the only type of goods that they were looking for, though. The next thing valuable to coins, gold, silver, or any other precious metal were, rolls of silk, spices, indigo, tobacco, alcohol, furs, that kind of thing, sugar, and, other food things that you could, eat on your ship. They could also take weapons, navigational instruments, even the rope and the sails and stuff on the ship itself could be very useful for a pirate ship. In fact, a lot of times pirates would take the ship that they were attacking, so they didn't want to damage it as much. You're coming off of what could be a dingy ship that you're starting off of. I'm sorry, the funniest image came to my head. Just imagine, starter businesses and just a starter pirate ship. I'm sorry, that's not funny when I said it out loud, but it was funny in my head. But you could update your ship that you've been traveling on for who knows how long to a higher, better quality ship that is, manufactured for actual war that certain governments over here might be using. Okay, this is my favorite part. I was literally so excited to do this after I heard of her. So I'm moving on to one of my favorite pirates probably ever, and it is the story of Sanga. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. It is a Chinese name. I really do apologize for butchering the pronunciation of this. I probably should have looked it up, but I didn't. And it is, in fact, too late now. So we're going to focus first a little bit on Eastern piracy, which I think the height was from 1775 to 1844. So in the kind of later years of the Yuan dynasty, which was from 1279 to 1368, Woku, Japanese pirates, raided the coastal provinces between China with, increasing regularity. By the mid-16th century, the Ming Dynasty had strengthened its navy and rebuilt coastal island fortresses so that it could better fend off all of these attacks. So while the Ming Dynasty did crack down on a lot of piracy during the 1540s, it did have the effect that a lot of the pirate crews had a more closer connection and had a lot more closely knit and did get a lot more violent after this. So, after that little introduction on Eastern piracy, since we didn't quite focus on it, Shang Yi Sao, or Qingxi, or Shang Yi Sao, was chief of a massive pirate confederation which plundered the South China Sea in the early 19th century. So this is going to be around here. Sanga Sao had worked as a prostitute in Canton before marrying in 1801, and she actually inherited the chief role from her late husband, Sang Yi, who lived from 1765 to 1807. So she expanded the pirate fleet and defeated 3 Chinese flotillas, which is just a fancy word for fleet, in the process of that. The Imperial Chinese, British, and Portuguese navies could not bring her to justice. And it was only when she herself chose to accept a pardon that she stepped down from this role. Sanga was the leader of a large pirate confederation, and over a period of just 2 years, he built this force up to about 600 ships and 40,000 men. These were divided into 6 divisions, each led by an independent commander who operated an agreed area of the South China Sea, and captured cargoes, including goods like gold, silver, silk, and other such things like spices, Chinese porcelain, tea, and cotton. So after they got these goods, they were sold to merchants on the coast for probably a higher uptake of a price so that they could get some profit out of it. In case of foreign ships that they might capture, they usually captured mariners who were ransomed for probably large sums of money. The pirate chief Zheng Sao's husband actually was killed in November of 1807, either in action or in a typhoon. It isn't really known. The other 5 pirate captains under him had to decide on a successor, and they choose Zheng's wife, Sanga Sao. Sanga Sao continued to concentrate on the Canton area of China, which was still a major trade hub in that time. And she plundered with great success for about 3 years. In July of 1808 and July of 1809, she two times, obliterated the Chinese naval fleets guarding the river delta between Portuguese Macau and Canton. When Sanga Sao decided to retire from piracy, she did it in style. She sailed her entire fleet of about 260 junks, which were smaller, more quicker ships, into the Canton harbor, and she demanded a pardon from the authorities on the coast that she landed on, and she gained her pardon. She got pardoned from everything she had ever done, and she did some pretty bad things. Honestly, I might make a full video about her because she is such an interesting person. Is she a bad person? I would say kind of yes. But, we all have our problematic faves, and she is mine. So she had negotiated an agreement that all of her pirates could keep their plunder, but had to give up most of their ships, which honestly is really impressive because I don't know how you get away with doing all that illegal stuff and then get pardoned for not only yourself, but for everybody under you, and everybody gets to keep their stuff. I mean, hats off and hands together for her. I give her a round of applause for real. Okay, now that we are finished talking about Sanga Sao, as much as I regret being finished talking about her because I love her, we're going to talk about traditional piracy today. So piracy kind of experienced a bit of a sudden rise at the turn of the 21st century. I know a lot of you might expect it to be on a down low because that is when a lot of digital and online innovation started to be made. However, it was quite the opposite. So the problem of maritime piracy exists almost all of the world's seas, but it's not as equal as it is in certain specific areas. Pardon me. In modern times, the most frequent areas of piracy nowadays are Northwest Africa in the Gulf of Guinea, which is right around here, and the Niger River Delta, which is around here. There's the Red Sea in Somalia, which is around here. There's the Horn of Africa here, which is also another prominent spot. The Gulf of Aden, which is actually right here, surprisingly. And, of course, the Indian Ocean. The Indian subcontinent around down here, along with Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Malaysia, the Malay Strait, and the South China Sea, again here, where Sanga Sao was, South and Central America, around here, and the Caribbean, which is supposed to be here, but I did not draw it. I apologize. And the Gulf of Mexico. Oftentimes, these pirates just attack based on availability and opportunity. So, So most of them don't really have a plan as to where they're attacking or organized systems as they might have in the past. And there is a lot more naval protection for especially the more precious cargo like oil, for example. In fact, a lot of cargo do have insurances for their cargo, which can get pretty expensive. And that's not even a guarantee of getting your money back if your cargo is stolen. So the growth of attacks in the modern day were recorded between 2000 and 2004. There were between about 300 and 350 incidents per year in that time frame. In 2005 and 2006, there was a small decrease, but from 2007 to 2011, there was a significant increase recorded. From 2012 to 2017, there was a slight decline, but that kind of has plateaued in recent years. Well, with that wraps up the abbreviated history of piracy, at least the things that I was interested in. I hope you enjoyed, and I will put the sources both in the description and at the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and Dr. Cochran, I again apologize, but I hope you had fun. Thank you.